powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan's here, everybody. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. They dropped a freshie with reaction to the Eagles' win, although many fans out there, Adam, didn't make it feel like it was a win. We'll discuss why right now with Adam Caplan here on the Sports Bash. And don't forget, they're getting ready for a Thursday night turnaround, some injury issues already. We'll dive into it all right now with Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds podcast. What's going on, Adam?
Michael, good to be with you. Yeah, I actually mentioned that what you were talking about on our show, the early reaction, because I always check Twitter, or X as it's called now, to see what the fan reaction is on social. And look, I get it. The fans are very demanding. They should be. That they didn't play well. The game, as I told you Friday, Mike, would be choppy. It was. I almost got the score right. I told you it would be ugly. I actually picked them to win by 6, and they won by 5. So, look, it went kind of like I thought. Now, you don't know how that will work. You don't know who will do well, not do well, but it was kind of an ugly win. And you know what? If you're an Eagles fan, and if you're and from the club standpoint, if you're the coaches and players, you better feel really good about that game. That you should feel, hey, we escaped. The term I use is survive in advance. They did, and they'll learn from it. No question about it.
All right, well, let's look at the win and some of the things that happened. Let's look at Hurts. I mean, a lot of people said he looked tentative. He looked like he just felt different. How would you describe Hurts' game on Sunday?
I'll give you a little hint. Well, when we drop our next show on Inside the Birds, just Jeff and I, and we want to also get out word on some other shows that are debuting this week, which are pretty special. But the term I'm using is uneven. He actually made some good throws. He missed some throws. Guys open, he didn't hit. It's not just Goddard. People saw a couple things on TV, and they're acting like that was the whole game. No, that's not correct. We'll explain that in a second. But, yeah, it was uneven. I mean, he just was not comfortable. That's the term I was given. I think that's pretty fair. What happens is, I think what really happened with Jalen, he moved sometimes when he shouldn't have moved. There's a term that coaches use. He was just not comfortable, Mike, and that was disappointing. But that kind of defense, this is why on your show Friday, Mike, I said it's going to be an ugly offensive game. I thought they'd struggle offensively. They did. The Patriots, they got down 16-0. It has nothing to do with the Eagles. Self-inflicted wounds. I mean, the deflection, anyone could have caught it. I mean, look, the Eagles scored. Hey, it counts. But the Eagles then almost choked the lead. I mean, they really struggled to keep the game, to win the game in the end. They did. Give them credit for that. They certainly deserve credit. They found a way to win. People could say what all they want about luck, and if Booty would have gotten his feet in, that's fine. But they didn't, and they won. So you got to give them credit for that.
Well, and the question we had earlier, I just want to kind of interject here, was they went for it on 4th and 2 at their own 44 there, right?
That was not smart. I know they use a chart. I'm big on that from a coaching standpoint. I know a lot of coaches in the NFL, got some head coaches, and I get it. They use the chart. They've explained it to me privately why they do it. It's all percentage based. When they use the chart, actually, Mike, they don't always do that. But when they do, Mike, it's strictly percentage based, which gives you the best chance where you are down in distance to win the game or to convert and all that. You take everything into account and you make a decision. So we all saw it. This is a situation that you just don't go for it there. I just didn't understand it. Look, there was a craziness of last night's game. When the Bills are up 13-3, the Jets have 2 penalties on the same play. They decided to not take him out of field goal range. How dumb was that? It's just not thinking. With Kyle Wilson in the game, Zach Wilson in the game. Are you serious? It's just not. That was not smart by Sean McDermott. See, these coaches sometimes overthink stuff, and that does happen.
Adam Caplan. So Hurts described as uneven. Did you see though? Like, did you feel watching him? He just looked indecisive or tentative or
uncomfortable. That was it. Yeah. That's the term. That's the coaching term, and I've been given it, and I'm going to stick by that.
Okay.
It's a term that I've used for years when coaches tell me that a guy was not comfortable. It's generally he's not trusting what he sees, and we haven't seen this from Hurts in a long time. He wasn't bad, by the way. People are saying he was bad. No, he wasn't. Let's.
Yeah, I don't think he was bad. He just seemed something.
Wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Wasn't good enough. That's what it was.
Put it this way. Credit to him that he has raised our expectations of what we expect from him in a game. And
yes.
They won a game in a game that he didn't meet those expectations.
Right, and that's a great point, Mike. And their defense really took over their front four, but we'll get to that in a second. But
yeah.
The other problem that I had in this game is a lack of explosive plays. Mike, if you remember, I said 7 will be the total of targets. Guess what? They got 7, the running backs, but not like the way we saw it in training camp, Mike. It just was the usage, the odd usage of DeAndre Swift. I don't understand what they were doing. This is where Nick Sirianni, the head coach, who's an offensive guy, has to say to Brian Johnson, what are we doing with Agent Zero? Get him the football. This is not good. This is not acceptable. And having Rashad Penny inactive, I understand from a number standpoint. I get it. I understand what Sirianni talked about on Monday in his press conference. But where are the explosive plays on offense? Kenny Gallow's not explosive. How many times do I have to say this? One guy came out after me on Twitter. He apologized to me on Monday. I didn't say anything to him because I've been on this for about 2 months. And the guy goes, "You were right." He goes, "I should have listened." Because I think what happened, Mike, is people went by what he was at Memphis. He's not that guy. The tape shows it. We need to accept the way the players are in year 3, and they're not using him. Look, he's a good. Look, he grinds carries. I get that. He's not explosive. Swift was active. Penny wasn't. The only explosive back they had active was Swift, and they didn't use him. That's on the coaches, and it's not acceptable.
Now, Gainwell, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason he's getting the touches is they trust him more than they trust the other guys, right?
Well, I wrote about that for Pro Football Network today, and if you follow me on Twitter, it's on there. I wrote about it, and they have a video of it. Yeah, and we've been talking about this we put this out there after Gainwell was drafted. The coaches they didn't make the call, but they pushed for him in 2021, and that's fine. But we're going to move on in a second here to receivers and the rest of the positions. Tell me where the explosive plays are going to come from.
All right, Adam Caplan, let's look at the running back. Gainwell, by the way, rib injury, questionable, possibly even to play on Thursday night. So the running back rotation, we saw it the other day, it was essentially Gainwell. I think Swift had 2 targets in the past game, did not catch a ball. He had, 1 carry? But Gainwell didn't have some game-breaking game either. Was that Gainwell, or do you look at the offensive line and say that they had some problems?
I think it's who Gainwell is, Mike. If we just isolate it, he's a grinder. He's become this grinder. Burrows has said he's actually, by data, my friends at FantasyPoints.com said he was the best sure yardage back in the National Football League last season. That's great. That's not what they need him to do. This is a mistake. I'm not backing off this one, Mike. This is a mistake when I saw it last year. Maybe you could say, I know I get Miles Sanders. They didn't trust him in the pass game. Why did they make the trade for DeAndre Swift? I get it's week 1. I know what Dan Campbell said about Jahmyr Gibbs. He's got to get the ball more. I understand week 1's a little weird. But going forward, Penny better get more touches. And I'm glad that Sirianni actually brought that up without being prompted during his Monday press conference.
All right, Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Sean Desai's first game there, his defensive line probably was the standout of the day.
Oh, they were terrific. I mean, Jordan Davis showed up. Jalen Carter was flat-out awesome. It's more than a flash play. Fletcher Cox, who was awful in week 1 last year, we outlined it on Inside the Birds from our sources. Cox and Hargrave were awful in week 1. They didn't give an effort against Detroit. Well, maybe Fletcher remembered that because he brought it. It wasn't just the 2 flash plays he made before he suffered his ribs injury in the fourth quarter. He brought it when they needed it. It got off to a good start in the first quarter. That's really good news. How about Milton Williams? And by the way, Mike, we outlined this on Inside the Birds. We didn't know it would happen, but it happened. We did note that they went with a lot of 4-man front, not 5-man in training camp. What do you think they did in this game? 4-man front. You can't argue because they stopped the run, Mike. They got pressure. I understand people want sacks. They had a lot of quarterback pressures, but the line brought it. Boy, that D-line rotation is something awesome. I got to tell you, we've had our criticisms sometimes of how they built the roster, but not how they build their defensive lines. And their D-line brought it now. The problem is the coverage on what I'm told second-level defense was awful at times in this game. Really bad in pass coverage.
Well, let's start then with the inside linebackers. Obviously, Dean is out, so we can, pontificate a little bit about that. Cunningham next to him. What are they going to do there? But the inside linebackers, were they playing well with Dean on the field?
Not from a coverage standpoint. From a run standpoint, they were. Not from a coverage standpoint. We outlined this, again, with Zach Cunningham. Do not think the teams will just go after him in nickel. or dime. Well, actually, he won't be a dime linebacker, nickel. They'll go after him on base downs, first and second. They sure did. Christian Ellis is not a good coverage player, no matter what people think. He's not. He's a flash player. Needs to be more consistent. He's gifted though. I mean, it's going to be interesting. So with Dean on IR, as Moshe reported yesterday, he said 4 weeks. Well, guess what? He went on IR today. It's a minimum of 4 games. It's not weeks. It's got to be 4 games by rule. We'll find out soon. I'm told that I put this out yesterday. It's not serious. It's a sprained foot. We've got a little note that's coming, which I'm going to put in tomorrow's show for our listeners on Inside the Birds at 6 a.m. Eastern about what the injury looks like. But the bottom line is, Mike, it's Nick Morrow, it's Ellis, and it's Cunningham right now. And Rashaan Evans is a former first-rounder who, by the way, is not bad in coverage, I'm told. He's okay. He's probably better than Cunningham in coverage, but unfortunately, Mike, they don't really have what I would call a coverage linebacker. Dean was probably the best of them. He's out for a bit. This is going to be a problem. Tight ends for fantasy, you saw what Hunter Henry did. In fact, Hunter Henry should have had the ball way earlier than he did. They got to him. It was second and third quarter. He should have gotten in the beginning of the game. They should have went right after Cunningham. They did later on, and they got him, and it was in coverage, and we knew this was going to happen. And you're going to see teams continue to do that. Watch T.J. Hawkinson this week.
Adam, give us some insight on what we learned about the safety position. I know Blankenship led the team in tackles. Yep. You talk about the pass coverage. What kind of role did the safeties play in the game on Sunday? Yeah,
they moved Evans up. Justin Evans is a box player. Evans was a box player, we're told, and they went after these guys in coverage. Boy, the intermediate era crossers, Mike, not good. You saw what Booty did. It just was. It was look. They now know that teams are going to do this. I'm very interested to see from an adjustment standpoint what they're going to do because Kendrick Bourne got him over the middle. That's what he does. Smith-Schuster didn't really hurt him. And remember, Devontae Parker was out with his injury, so he didn't play. That was a disappointing thing. They're not very good at receiver, but yet once Mac Jones got in a rhythm, you notice they didn't disrupt him. Why? Because he got rid of the ball quickly. That kills a pass rush. But the Eagles D-line did a good job. It's just what we were told the second and third level defenders were not good enough in pass coverage, period.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4 here. By the way, the Eagles injury report just dropped 1 minute ago. Blankenship, Bradbury, Gainwell, and Fletcher Cox limited, the other 3 DNP. So we're going to get into the injuries from the game because we know Dean is now out. He'll miss up to 4 games, as you talked about. Ellis, probably Morrow will get out there, so we'll see what happens there. Fletcher Cox probably will play in the game. But what about Bradbury, not expected to play? What happens in that spot?
Josh Jobe starts, and remember, Mike, they had 2 corners inactive. That means that Mario Goodrich should probably play. The question is, do they have Eli Ricks playing? Now, Goodrich is a backup slot, but his real position was outside. He can do both. Where Ricks is strictly outside, they'll have to make that decision. To me, Goodrich makes more sense, do the versatility, but Ricks could obviously play on the outside. That's what he does. Ringo, did dress last week, but really not a factor. How about Sidney Brown as a gunner on special teams? Had a beautiful tackle. We didn't really talk about him, Mike. I'm so interested to see what they do here. Do they put him on the field more? I know that's one thing we'd like to see happen. Number 21, the third rounder who they love. We'll see if he can get out there and play more on defense. But this is going to be a fun matchup. We'll talk more about the game when I'm with you on Friday about how it looks against the Vikings and what it looks like after the game. But by the way, the Eagles match up way better against the Vikings than they do against the Patriots, to say the least.
All right, Blankenship and Gainwell are the other 2. Now, Blankenship, DNP, Gainwell, some reports out there that kind of wait and see on Gainwell. People think Blankenship could play, though. But if Blankenship is out, that position will look kind of interesting. Gainwell, obviously, it sounds like, we all think, yeah, Gainwell's the guy, but they have enough depth to, if he does not play, to be okay.
Yeah, and you notice, Mike, if you saw what happened with Reed Blankenship, it was kind of weird. It looked like in midair he got kicked in the ribs. So, and he went back. He came back and played. So I'd be surprised if he didn't play. Cox, I'm expecting to play. Blankenship, it would be a surprise if he didn't play. They don't practice today. They had a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And then the question now would be with Gainwell. Now, he's a running back. He did finish the game. Now, see, this is where they should have had Rashad Penny as a closer to help him. This coaching staff loves this kid, and I get it. He's good in short yardage, but why not supplement him? They're gonna realize down the line, Mike, that this is not going to work. I'm just telling you, they're going to have to help him. He can't do it alone, and this is. I know they try to keep Penny and Swift on wraps in training camp, not give him a lot of work because their injury history, and I get that. But going forward, Mike, they've got to help Kenny Gainwell. He's just not built to take this kind of pounding.
Yep. All right, Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds and Inside the Birds podcast. Check out what they have, a lot deeper information on that loss. Excuse me, that win. Wow, I said loss because it seems like it's been gloom and doom, Adam. That's all.
I know. It's all right. Listen, as we said at the top here, it was expected. It was going to be a struggle. Nobody plays defense like New England. We'll learn from it. I have a high trust in this coaching staff. They'll make corrections. And by the way, didn't they play last Thursday night, week 2 against the Vikings? Was that a Thursday night game?
It was a Monday night game.
A Monday night game, okay. Monday night game. Yeah. But whatever it was, they took care of business. They were able to get that win, and they'll move on.
All right, Football at 4, Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. Thanks, bud.
You got it.